Yeah, so hi, good afternoon. It's Scott Mcrae. I'm the co-founder of Candidate.ID. So firstly, Paj sends his apologies. He's had to jump onto another call, so he's asked me to host and present. Uh, so there's 15 of us here, which is great, and I'm going to record the session so I can share that with you afterwards. And what I suggest we do is I run through an overview of Candidate.ID across the first kind of 15-20 minutes, and then let's have some time for questions at the end. So yeah, we're delighted to be part of the Hive, and keen to support AMS and Talent Collective around the world, help you win new business and improve service delivery where we can. So in terms of where we fit, okay, we kind of sit ahead of the ATS or the CRM. So we're in that area where organizations are trying to get a conversation and build a relationship with the people that we'd like to talk to. So that's simplistically the space that we fit in. And the sweet spot is really around what you would call everyday hiring, kind of always on requirements, and particularly kind of one level up from the sheer transactional level, one level up from the kind of call center workers, or because when you start to kind of go up the levels, those roles get tougher, demand gets greater. So that's our kind of the sweet spot of where we sit. But for all roles that an organization is hiring for, there is always a bunch of people that they would like to talk to. They would like to have a conversation with, if only they could get the chance. And let's call that the talent pool. But in these kind of everyday hiring requirements, the importance of that group of people and the desire to build it and the desire to nurture it, develop a relationship with it, becomes more and more important, because getting the right type of person into the business can make a significant difference. And you want to be able to focus on people that are most interested in the roles that you have in the organizations. But there's a lot, there are some significant kind of challenges with these types of roles. So you've got demand beginning to outstrip supply in certain areas and in certain job families. You've got candidates increasingly self-educating, and if anybody's interested in where the sort of light bulb moment came from for Candidate.ID, it came from, prior to co-founding Candidate.ID, I ran a specialist business-to-business demand generation company, and we used a ton of marketing automation platforms to underpin the work that we did. And the rationale why businesses needed marketing automation platforms was because business-to-business buyers basically disappeared. All of the information that they needed to learn about a company, to what kind of products or services they could use to solve their problems, to reference the different suppliers and go from a long list to a short list, they could do on their own, and they would do that without talking to sales. So they wouldn't engage, our business-to-business guys wouldn't engage with salespeople until very late on in the process. And marketing automation was the technology that enabled organizations to adapt to that change in buyer behavior. And 3 years ago, Adam Gordon, the other co-founder of Candidate.ID, we were both working for one of the UK's fastest growing tech businesses. I was explaining the rationale for MA and the fact that business buyers are self-educating, and he mentioned that candidates are beginning to do the same. They won't engage with organizations, they won't engage with recruiters until much later on in their kind of decision-making process. There's all the information that they need to learn is out there, and which kind of makes sense when you think about it, because moving jobs or moving careers in the main is a really big deal. And so of course we're going to go and do our own research and want to find out about what would that organization be like? How would they look good on my CV? Are they going in the right direction? Are they a leader? Are they a follower? How are they transforming in digital, etc.? And what would it be like to work there? Could I see myself doing meaningful work? Where the office is located, and what's the culture, and how are the teams organized, and what's the coffee taste like, etc. And then what is is there kind of live opportunities? Are the opportunities to look exciting, and what is the career progression and benefits and all that type of stuff. So yeah, we're going to go and look at that. So in that sense, we do behave like our decision-making processes are in essence the same as a business-to-business buyer. However, it's talent acquisition is business to business to consumer, B2B to C, because we consume content in all the different ways that a normal B2C play is. So anyway, you've got candidates increasingly self-educating and not engaging with organizations or their recruitment representatives until much later on in the process. You've got more churn, shorter average, kind of job length, etc. You've got more interest from the board and from senior management around getting the right people into the company, and you've always got downward cross pressure on people and on budgets. So, as I said, for these roles, there's always a talent pool, and for some roles it can be smaller and less important. It can be smaller or more important, or it can be big and very important. And organizations spend, a ton of money and do a ton of things trying to have a conversation. Firstly, trying to have a conversation with the people that they'd want to talk to in that talent pool, but trying to, attract them, trying to interest them, trying to engage them, trying to nurture them over a long period of time, trying to convert them. And all of that effort produces, applications. Okay, but they're relative to the people that you want to talk to. The percentage of people that apply that are a great fit is always tiny. Okay, and you get lots and lots of people that apply that are not relevant or lower quality, and that's all very well documented. But the fundamental problem with what happens now is that it's kind of net fishing, right? You are flying. An organization is flying completely blind in terms of how engaged this group of people are, how interested are this group of people. Are they at all interested? Are they cold? Are they warm? Are they hot? Are they really hot? Okay, until they apply or until they stick their hand up, they're flying completely blind. So it's post and pray, and in that sense, it's a bit like chucking spaghetti at a wall. Where the spaghetti is the content that you're pushing out in order to try and, get a response from people saying, yes, I'm interested, I'd like to talk, or yes, I'm going to apply. And the wall is the database or the talent pool, if you like. So it's very scattergun. It's almost 100% manual. And especially when you talk about, how do you kind of develop and build kind of relationships automatically ongoing, all of that's currently done manually. Quite often the current data that you've got is never used because it's out of date, it's kind of stale or dead, as we would describe it. And so there's a kind of real focus on net new, starting from scratch. You get, and particularly if you're a high profile brand name, you get flooded with applications, right? And lots of them will be really, really poor that need to be worked through and responded, and takes lots of time and money to do that. And versus everybody else can be really difficult to get competitive advantage in terms of how you attract and engage and convert this talent pool, which means that the whole process is way more expensive and inefficient and time consuming than it needs to be. Very difficult to compete for the quality that you want. You can't build relationships with people over time. And if all you're doing is pushing jobs on people that aren't interested, then it leads to very poor candidate experience. And there's pretty much always you end up hiring people that you've already got in the database. Okay, so Candidate.ID is, you should call it talent pool and pipeline software, call it pipeline automation software, whichever one you want. It is all about this, right? It's all about giving you visibility into the candidates that are hire ready before they've actually applied. Okay, now I could ask all of this to you individually, as you're all really good at what you do. I'm sure that you get approached fairly regularly about new opportunities. But if you think about yourself personally, the step for you to apply for another job is a really, really big one. Okay. Now, I wouldn't say that quite that you'd have to be desperate to go and do it, but there's got to be a big push behind you to start an application process. Now, that could either be you really hate where you are at the moment, or you're actually out of work, or you're moving country, whatever it might be. But it's a big step to go and apply. It's a bit like, from a candidate point of view, it's a bit like going up and asking a girl to dance on the dance floor cold. It's just terrifying. The amount of fear of rejection is huge. Now, what our Candidate ID shows you, because of on the one side we've got very complex tracking and scoring capabilities, which that enables you to identify the candidates that are really hot. They've been learning about the company, they've been learning about the culture and the opportunities. They've been and they've been starting to look at live opportunities, look at what vacancies are out there, etc. So that they're what we would call hire ready. And so that's a bit like going to ask somebody to dance, given that they've been looking at you across the dance floor or across the bar for the last half an hour. So it gives you as an organization, gives you sort of 10 times the number of people for recruiters to go after for the vacancies that you have right now. Okay. What it also gives you is it gives you the ability to see the high quality people, immediately, that they become interested and look as though they're hire ready, so you can get kind of competitive advantage. It also has huge advantages from a kind of a productivity point of view, because it means that your expensive recruitment or the people resources around recruiters only have to focus on a much smaller percentage of the actual the talent pool. Maybe only 3-4% are ever hire ready at any one time, so they can just focus on that, and you can get that technology nurture the rest. Is the other half of our technology is all around kind of automation of communications, omni-channel, which I'll show you. So yeah, it enables you to build ongoing relationships, enables you to convert this talent pool into a talent pipeline that's always on. Now, so big wins from our recruiter productivity, big wins from stripping, the cost out of everyday hiring. And as I said, there's some fundamental human psychology that sits behind this. Is in that applying is scary, but being approached is flattering. All of us are open to conversations if we're approached at the right time, because people know that we're interested. I mean, 96% of career site visitors, for example, never apply. So all the money that's spent getting people to visit career sites, 96% of it, it goes nowhere. You've got the issues with, increasing candidates, ghosting applications, applying up to kind of more than 10 organizations at a time, and lots of low quality and not relevance that needs to be worked through. Okay, so from an RPO point of view, it's all, on the one hand, it's all about service delivery. It's about making more money. It's about getting some money quicker. It's about, if you can strip out the costs, from a people point of view and a third party point of view, you can make more margin. It's about bringing innovation to the table. It's about improving the experience for everybody's involved, from hiring managers to candidates to recruiters. It's about being able to reuse and continually reuse that really expensive asset that everybody's invested in, which is the database. It's about being able to convert talent pools into ongoing pipelines to hit your KPIs better. And then it's about new business, about how is it you can use new technology to win new business and new client pitches. So some 3 example case studies, which I'll just flick through quickly. So Dialog Semiconductor, senior software engineers in the US and the UK. It was an existing data set that was basically stale stroke dead, which we can automatically refresh and enrich all that data, bring it immediately up to date, which means that you can segment it properly. In this case, we just split it into the US and Europe from a time zone point of view, encased it with content that was already in the public domain on the Dialog Semiconductor website, reactivated the talent pool, and identified 14% which were ready for a hiring conversation, which the recruiters followed up with, and reduced their cost per hire by 93% and the time to hire by 50%. So in a really, really tough market for senior software engineers, I mean, the RPO had done everything to try and hit the targets, and we're still 15 to 20 short, and that happened in 6 weeks. Specsavers has been one of our longest clients. They've run us across Europe and the UK for more than 2 years. It's optometrists is the everyday hiring requirement. According to Indeed, they are the hardest roles to fill in the UK and Europe. because they've been in full employment for a number of years. There's more optometry jobs than there are optometrists, and Specsavers are the market leader with 55% market share. So the lack of supply of optometrists was a real threat to the growth of their business. And just by running Candidate.ID, and obviously changing a little bit about what they did, day to day, they've been able to hire 55% more optometrists year on year with the same team. No new people and no new spend, and strip out 40% in the cost of everyday hiring. And they've been able to do that because the recruiters have only had to focus on 3% of the talent pool, the ones that are hire ready, and just let the technology nurture the less on the other 97%. And out the same data set, they've hired 56 optical assistants, for free, no spend on advertising or job boards. So there's a lot that you can do in here when budgets are, get tight from an advertising and job board point of view. Okay. Starbucks, similar story to Dialog Semiconductor for store managers in Australia. So the use cases are all around everyday hiring. How do you improve the quality? How do you continually improve? How do you strip out the costs? How do you compete for in-demand talent? And that could be niche or specialist. How do you keep the data sets, the databases, the talent pools continually up to date, continually engaged, and convert them into pipelines? And then because we're much more like spear fishing rather than net fishing, is if you've got specific niches or even diversity, it's fantastic for that. So this is Starbucks in Australia. I picked this as an example because it's kind of, everybody can understand what it would be like to be a store manager in a coffee shop. And this sort of visualizes, how the technology works. So this particular candidate's journey started when they opened an email that Starbucks had sent them, and then he was reading about. He went on to read about what Starbucks are doing in Australia, and then he engaged on an SMS, on a text campaign. Went on to read more about what Starbucks are doing in Australia and some of the initiatives that they had, and watch some of the videos. And then he started to look at career progression, and started to look at specific opportunities in certain regions. And then he started to look at specific store manager jobs in Sydney Northwest and Sydney Metro, and that just triggers. That's when you start to score. The points start to score high. So all of the activity, our candidates' activity and behaviour is tracked, and then we put a scoring algorithm against that, which surfaces the candidates that start to exhibit interested in jobs, ready for a hiring conversation. And we also can send automatic alerts straight into the recruiters or whoever needs to see them from a follow-up point of view. And that can be done on email, it can be done on text message, it can be done on Slack. Okay, this is software engineers, and this girl's actually in Germany, and her conversion or initial engagement point happened when she read a piece about technology from the CTO that was posted on LinkedIn, and then took her to a landing page around their technology. She started to read about some of the great applications for Dialog Semiconductor's technology. She started to look at what engineering from a career point of view, and why the best people join them. She started to watch some videos from the hiring managers and things like that. She engaged on email. And then she started to look at the specific opportunities and career progression and the digital design engineer jobs that were based in Germany or whatever. And at which point, scores start score high, and alerts are sent to recruiters, etc. So we have from a functionality point of view, we have a lot of CRM functionality, but we have there's a whole raft of kind of talent pool and talent pipeline technology. And I think that so we can sit straight on top of the ATS. Sometimes there's a requirement for a big CRM like Aperture, etc., and which we don't have a lot of that functionality, but we kind of sit alongside or kind of almost within Aperture, if you like, kind of turbocharging that part of the CRM. But where there's not a a requirement for a CRM the size of Aperture, then there's a lot we can pretty much kind of handle the rest of it. Great dashboard that shows you the the activity and the health of the talent pools and how that's converting into talent pipelines. The ability to build fairly complex, automated, ongoing kind of, nurturing and engagement campaigns, or the ability to build kind of like, fairly simple things. A lot of people say that, I've said this could be great for contingent, for example, in the sense that, if when a contractor's contract term date is coming up, then you can automatically start to market to them a month or 6 weeks out, and that can just whir away in the background. Or also that how you keep databases ongoing, compliant from a GDPR and data privacy point of view. We can automate all of those requirements. The ability to look at individual talent pools and to rank them by who's most engaged or who has been most recently active, which is when you can start to convert them into talent pipelines. The ability to look at the individual candidate level and to see how their engagement is built up over time, but most specifically to see what's been driving their engagement. What content have they been most interested in? What have they read? Okay, and this not only tells you what they're interested in, so it could be wireless connectivity, it could be power efficiency DSLR, it could be wireless charging for digital devices, but then you can also start to see when they visit specific opportunities and start to look at the actual jobs, which triggers the requirement for follow-up. From a attraction, conversion, engagement point of view, the ability to look at all the data for everything that works. Okay, so great for recruitment marketeers and brand attraction and people in terms and candidate experience point of view, in terms of what really drives that first point of conversion, what really drives engagement, what really drives conversion into either applications or engagement with recruiters in terms of having a conversation. All the data to then optimize and improve and make sure budgets are justified budgets and improve budgets. So, but people often ask us, hey, look, so what is it that you bring to the table apart from the CRMs don't do? And so the fundamental difference between us and a CRM is that CRMs are still basically systems of record. Okay, they're database driven systems of record, and but we're a system of engagement in the sense that tracking and scoring, complex tracking and scoring, is at the core of what we do. So where a CRM can only ever tell you who's opened an email, okay, whereas we can tell you who's opened an email and what everything else that they're doing, which means from a recruitment point of view, who to prioritize. You're going to talk to all the Janes and the Johns. So our personal point of view is that we see, in the short to medium term, we see, modern ATS and modern CRMs merging as a technology layer, because you need a system of engagement, in front of that, which, is integrated into programmatic advertising, integrated into job boards, etc., integrated into sourcing tools, etc., etc. So 4 clear USPs in Candidate.ID. So this the ability to rank, candidates based on engagement, reduces the time to shortlist and dramatically improves the productivity per recruiter. Understanding where candidates are and what stage of interest is means that you can deliver superior candidate experience, before they apply. All the big data around what works from a recruitment marketing point of view, which types of content, which channels, formats, subject, days of the week, times of the day for deliverability, all that type of stuff. And then knowing what candidates have been interested in gives you a script, gives recruiters a script for follow-up with. So this is, you can look at this in your own time, but details all the difference from a functionality point of view versus the alternatives. Some examples from IQVIA or Fortinet about, the simple things that are really easy to build. And a lot of questions we get is like, well, we already pay for landing pages, etc., all this different type of stuff, from somewhere like Avature, but we can just embed our script within Avature, so it doesn't matter where you build them. They're cool to do some cool things that are mobile first, the ability to swipe here to submit and keep yourself up to date, or to say that you want to stay in touch, right swipe. You can do some brilliant things. This is where we sit kind of in the stack. And this is how the technology works. It's cookie-based tracking, which is Pixel rather than Java. Mapped to fingerprint, which ties everything up across devices, and IP recognition ties everything up across browsers, so we can get a complete picture of, who the one individual is as they access content from different web addresses and across different devices. But you have this concept of, rather than starting net new from scratch all the time, is this kind of infinity loop, or always on kind of hiring process where nobody's ever lost and everything's just kind of virtuously being improved, where candidates are either aware, not aware, or aware, or learning, or being considered, or in a hiring process, or maybe being recycled for next time. Okay, so this is a little bit about who we are, who we work with, size of us, and some great quotes from people. And so that's it. I'm going to stop record. Well, no, I'm going to stop recording, and then everyone can ask questions.